Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Greetings, everybody. This is your humble host, Krish Dhanam, filling in again for my dear friend Todd Huff on the Todd Huff Radio Show, the home of conservative, not bitter. I did another episode in this go-around, and hopefully you'll get a chance to listen to that. If that's played before or after, it should be standalone and should be encouraging unto itself. A little bit on my background. I've always considered myself a marketplace evangelist, and my bio actually says corporate evangelist and biblical or global philosopher of some kind. Philosophy just being that art of putting everything in together and trying to make some sense. But the corporate evangelist part has been trying to live out the great commandment in the marketplace. And today, that's where we as Christians, as conservatives, find ourselves ramrodded against a wall because, we're constantly told that we can't share our faith or can't talk about things because HR will complain. And for me, HR just stands for Heaven's Resources, so I'm going to continue to fight that good fight. As an evangelist, I've traipsed the globe. I've been to about 80 countries on 6 continents. I started in the marketplace, eventually began a ministry that would take me to the depths of the world and the length of this globe in different perspectives, primarily to encourage the faithful shepherds, the frontline shepherds. See, pastors around the world are quite different. Their churches cannot support them, so most of them are bivocational. And I've used my marketplace skills to encourage them and prepare them for the week so that they can earn a living. And then when they can come back over the weekend using God's good word to share and shape lives. So that's my background. Again, my name is Krish Dhanam. I'm currently the Dean and Provost of the Patriot Academy at its campus in Fredericksburg, Texas. And check out patriotacademy.com. We are an organization that fulfills all the mandates of good old-fashioned American living, focus heavily on the First and Second Amendment, and we participate in teaching the one-room schoolhouse model, where we teach people discipline in their studies and dignity in their labor. So they work on campus for half a day or somewhere odd jobs, and then the other half day they are in the class of some kind. And depending on whether it's fall or summer, we rotate it depending on the Texas heat and what it allows us to do. So when they're needed to be in air condition, we put them in air condition. And when it's flexible enough for them to go out and flex their muscles, we allow them to do that too. I've been part of this movement for about 25 years, going and teaching at Patriot Academy, things like biblical citizenship, worldview lectures, apologetics, American church history, global church history, moral philosophies, all the way from Aristotle and Socrates and Plato through the Enlightenment to postmodernism. So that's just a big amount of verbiage I dumped on you to give you a little bit of what I get to do, not in any way except as a passion. I love the ability to read and encourage people. I love the ability to try to challenge convention by studying thoughts and ideas that most people would find challenging. Some of the books I read are a cure for insomnia if you have it. And so some of the things I say may be actually giving you that insomnia. So if for some reason you feel yourself drifting on in your driving, please stop and switch the program off so you don't hurt yourself in any way. All that to say that today I want to talk to you about a simple formula on how do we move ahead. We are in some very incredible times. America has got a reprieve. I think we dodged a bullet, literally, figuratively, and precisely, I guess, in some ways, to have been given that reprieve. We are at a very incredible time in human history. I think Adrian Rogers, that great preacher, once said that one day the dam of God's mercy will burst and unleash the flood and wrath of the flood of his wrath. I'm fortunate that we have been in the concept of grace for so long, and I cannot even imagine how debauched Sodom and Gomorrah would be compared to where we are as a world today, and that God's lightning bolt doesn't come. I'm reminded of Isaac Watts' take on the second Psalm when he said, "Why do these nations join to slay the Lord's anointed Son? Why do they cast his laws away and tread his gospel down? The Lord who reigns above the sky derides their rage below and speaks with vengeance in his eyes and casts their spirits through. I called him my eternal Son. I raised him from the dead. I made my holy hill his throne and wide his kingdom spread. Ask me, my son, and then enjoy the utmost heathen land. Thy rod of iron will destroy the rebel that withstands. Be wise, ye rulers of the earth. Adore the heavenly Lord. Obey the King of heavenly birth and tremble at his word. With humble love address his throne. For if he frown, ye die. Those are secure and those alone who on his grace rely." And I've come to that point. I've just been relying on God's grace through all the tumult of the last number of years. As a migrant to these here United States, I came here in 1986 with $9 to my name. Since then, I've had the privilege of sharing the stage with 2 U.S. presidents, ambassadors, secretaries of state, former first ladies, titans of industry, captains of enterprise, sports athletes, you name it. I've had that joy of doing it. In fact, when I sit at my little den in my house in Dallas and I look at all the autographed footballs I have from people who are such great celebrities, I just pinch myself that I had the chance to live this American dream. My mentor, Mr. Ziglar, always gave me this advice. He said, live your day by the clock, but your life with a vision. And to that end, today I want to hopefully take you through a concept of how do we move ahead? How do we move ahead in these times to combat that which is ignorant, to confront that which is idiotic, to complement that which is informative, to enhance that which is intuitive. Whatever our goals are, we need to step into life and not recuse ourselves from a society that seems debauched. As an individual, as parents, we have had our own brush with this casualty of culture with our child. And as a result of that, I speak not only from pain, but in the Bible it tells us that Paul's thorn never left him, nor did Jacob's limp. And as a result of that, as we feel that sometimes we are battered and wounded in the conservative cause, and everywhere around us we see cacophony arise, and we see counterintuitive marches with people who look imbecilic in their way, in their shout, in their demeanor, I want to give you hope. I want to give you hope today that it's not going to be all right just because I say so, but it's going to be all right because not only that the Bible says so, but there is a God-given mandate. I think we are breathing the relief that that mandate has given us. I don't know how much time we have in this new idea or this new world that we are living in, this new conservative agenda being unleashed with such fury. The rally cry against it is going up day and night. If it's vaccines, they fight against it. If it's law and order, they fight against it. Anything, as Scott Jennings would say, the 20 on every 80-20 issue seems to be the rally cry of the progressive left. But that doesn't mean the progressive right needs to be pumping their chests and saying, we won, yada, yada, yada. We need to take this time as that reprieve. What have we been given and what can we do with it? Many years ago, Bill Bright and Lauren Cunningham called that the 7 mountains of influence. How do we influence these mountains? How do we influence politics? How do we influence education? How do we influence religion? How do we influence finances? How do we influence family? And so on and so forth. My formula for you is simple. It follows the word move, M-O-V-E. First, let's merge with the lane of truth. Truth by nature is exclusive. I've said that many times. If you've heard me a minute or an hour, you've heard me say this over and over again, that truth by nature is exclusive. But for some reason, we have decided over the last many years, probably the last 40 years, maybe even longer, post-Vietnam, when many great philosophers say America's cultural soul came home in a body bag, what we have seen is the redefining of truth. There is 2 truths now, my truth and your truth, not objective truth, but a subjective truth. My heart likes it, my head approves it, you better approve it, and you better applaud it. And then there is the objective truth, right, wrong, yes, no, black, white, good, bad. Since the days of our late, great Rush Limbaugh, when we have believed in objective truth, we've always been vilified. There is always a parallel. And the parallel is, but why do you object to somebody having their own idea about truth? And that's the issue here, isn't it? If you want to merge the lane of truth, there has to be an understanding of what this truth is. Is there an objective truth? And I do believe it is. I believe it's a natural law or nature's law that follows nature's lawgiver. And whether that truth is something as simple as believing that, as Isaac Newton says, I can explain to you through formula what gravity is. I can show you through mechanism and method how it works. But I cannot ever, for a life of me, figure out why gravity exists. That's agency, and I leave that to the divine. And I don't know, somewhere along the line, we decided that man would start playing God. And what Newton was saying is there are things we can explain. It's part of the intellect we have been given to be able to explain some of the things we experience in this world. But some things are left up to the designer, to a creator, to a creation. And I think we have recently started meddling with that, and that's when the erosion of truth took place. The erosion of truth took place because people started believing in what the media was telling them, in what the politicians wanted people to believe. And it doesn't take you to be a Phi Beta Kappa from MIT to figure out what truth is. Objectively, we all know it. I don't think there is a person out there who's protesting in that blue-haired hippie squad of some kind that decides to wear all kinds of garish makeup, all kinds of ridiculous adornments and piercings and all the things that may be their desire to express themselves, but they know and they know that they know that they know in their heart of hearts that they are not doing it for any other reason except a desperate desire to garnish and garner attention. That's all it is. At the end of the day, your cry out is just for that. John Lennox, a multiple PhD from Oxford University, says nonsense is nonsense even if Stephen Hawking says it. So you could be the most learned person in the world. You could be the most esteemed professor in the world. You could have tenure at one of the Ivy League institutions. But even you know it when you espouse stupidity. When you espouse stupidity, in your heart of hearts, any common sense man with a second grade education should be able to say, you know what? That goes against the framework of common sense. Then why then is this desire to so desperately remake society? Why is there this desperate daily fervor to remake everything that is normal? So when we say, let's clean up a city, say, okay, but you cannot clean up the city if you're of a different political persuasion. You can only clean up the city if you're of my political persuasion. What happened to the common sense attribute that I don't care who gets rid of the trash as long as the trash is gotten rid of? Why does a Republican taking out trash have to be one side and a Democrat taking out trash being the other side when trash itself is trash? Do you really care who takes out the garbage? Same token, do you really care who solves the crime problem if security and sanity is given to you? Politics cannot be so divisive in ourselves that we are redefining truth in terms of, I'm going to determine if crime is affecting me only if it is red crime or blue crime. And then the audacity. I mean, I don't care if you're a billionaire governor of a state. If you have the audacity to say that, all the crime is actually in red states, well, that's misleading, right? You know that you're misleading people when you know that the statistics are proving that it's the blue-run cities that are actually more overrun by crime. And it's not like data we're pulling out from a hat or from a weekend. We're pulling it out from years of research in the same locale. And so when someone stands up and says that I have had enough of it, you're immediately branded as someone who's a fascist. Oh, yeah, Hitler, some Hitler. This Hitler cry has gotten so ridiculous, it's almost laughable. Now, I teach at an academy that's called Patriot Academy, and, it's been branded in many different ways as saying, okay, they believe in the ultra-American propaganda, they're nationalists. I'm a first-generation migrant to this United States. As Dinesh D'Souza said when he was accosted at an event, he says, what threat do I pose to anybody? I came here with nothing to my name. I worked hard every day and followed the rules that were given to me, the American way, the American dream. My mentors were all white. My mentors were all ultra-religious. They were ultra-conservative. When I first met him, I was a practicing Hindu at that time who came from a different society, who came from abject poverty. But I overcame language, I overcame linguistics, I overcame everything just because I truly believed that what these guys were saying was the right thing to do. So righteousness does have a truth component to it. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves, the first litmus test in everything we do in our movement is merge the lane of truth. Merge the lane of truth. The O in my formula stands for overcome the frame of lies. Man, I don't care how you camouflage a lie. It is easy to anybody with a basic civic sense to see that you're grandstanding. I cannot believe for a second that if you have worked anywhere at any length of time that you would get on TikTok and make some of the stupid assertions you do about what is required of you. I remember when I went for my first job, the guy says, by law, you're going to be required to work 40 hours a week, and it was a minimum wage job. I quizzically asked him, can I work 60? He said, why would you want to work 60? I said, 60 times minimum wage is more than 40 times minimum wage. And you know what he said to me? This was when minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. He says, yeah, you know what? I love your innocence. You'll go far. See, innocence is the seedbed of wonder. And when we take innocence away, people cease to wonder. Amazement goes to the background. And suddenly we go from, even though we are living in a Star Wars world with artificial intelligence doing amazing things, self-driving cars, China providing, a platform which can receive 140 high-speed trains a day and take up to 700,000 people as passengers. Whether you believe in China's ideology or not, isn't it? Human invention has brought us to the point of that brilliance of experiencing a Star Wars kind of world, that amazement. But the other side is Mad Max, doom and gloom. It cannot be right. Something bad's going to happen. Something bad has to happen. Why is that? Why is it that there cannot be a live and a let live philosophy? Why is it that the haves and the have-nots don't get along anymore together? A poor person has never offered me a job. That doesn't mean I'm not poor. When I was poor, I didn't envy the rich. I wanted to be rich. But I also understood there's a difference between having wealth and riches. Wealth is when everybody loves you. Riches are when your best friends want to hang out with you, and the moment that goes, they leave you by the wayside. So overcome the frame of lies. We have parents now being cut off from their grandchildren for the simple reason that they voted for someone different than the children did. Now, that is not only sophomoric, that is moronic, that is idiotic. It goes against the grain of a healthy family. Generational people have had the ability to disagree. We fought wars over this. This nation allowed people to die when we went and fought for causes that were not even causes that we needed to be a part of, but we went because it was just. You can debate the number of people that died at Auschwitz, whether it was 6 million or 4 million, and you can put a TikTok video on whether the Holocaust was really as big as it was or not, but that's stupid till you actually walk in Auschwitz, and I have. And you see what Hannah Arendt called the banality of evil. Taking the hair off a human scalp and knitting it into socks and caps because that is the greatest insulation that any fiber can provide, and then shipping it off to your troops who are fighting on the front lines in Siberia is what fascism and Adolf Hitler did. Now you tell me that we're doing anything close to that in our stuff, and I will tell you that you do not understand the banality of evil. So stop it with these comparisons. But that's overcoming the frame of lies. So when I hear the word Hitler or Nazi, or I hear any of this propaganda nonsense given to conservatives, I always stand up and I said, I'm a brown-skinned first-generation immigrant. I'm proud of the fact that I am an immigrant. I'm proud of the fact that I've had to live and achieve the American dream. But I'm also proud of the fact that I get to teach American kids American history, church history, religion, belief, philosophy, understanding, worldviews. The joy of that could not have happened anywhere else. You take anywhere else in the world where an immigrant would come from another country and go to France, for example, with very little money to his name, and then be recognized by the government of France to teach French history to French people. It's an oddity that is only possible in the American experience. So I tell people, before you get all ratcheted up and riled up to go out and protest stupidity, ask yourself, Why, when someone offers me a one-way ticket first class to somewhere else, I don't want to go? Because this is the only place that will allow you to get up and be your stupid self day in, day out, and still give you the luxury and the provision to do that. No other nation allows this. You cannot go and rail against any other nation in one of those countries. They'll lock you up in a heartbeat. And these people are supposedly free, just like we are. Republics all over the world. They're called republics. The Republic of India, the Republic of the Congo, any of these places, you go onto the street corner and you start shouting and call the main person in charge what we call our people in charge here, and you see how long you last in that provision. This is an amazing nation, and I want us as conservatives to articulate our love with a wisdom and our knowledge with true facts. You know, these people who are being guided on feelings need to be jostled back into reality with facts. And once those facts begin to play, those facts have to have a compassion attached to it, which is the commandment. I don't ever go into these dialogues because you're a conservative audience. That's where you're listening to this show. So I'm going off on a little bit of a higher pitch here. But the reality is when I go and engage, and I've been invited to speak in mosques, I've been invited to speak in temples. They know I'm a Christian. You just have to look at my YouTube. And you know that I'm an avowed evangelical Christian who has spent my life spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. But I also know that the two things my Lord gave me, the Great Commandment and the Great Commission, are parallel lines, and I have to straddle them. I have to make disciples because that's the true God. But I also have to love them, and if I do that, I have to do it in a winning and a convincing way. In order to do that, I have to merge the lane of truth. I have to understand that truth by nature is exclusive. I have to find as many avenues of truth that will make the person who is living a lie realize they are living a lie. And then overcoming this frame of lies requires a tremendous amount of patience. Sometimes it's easy to watch the news or watch X or scroll through Facebook and just get riled up because we see some things that are not supposed to be normal that are now paraded as everyday behavior. But you have to take a deep breath and ask ourselves, it's not like what would Jesus do, what wouldn't Jesus do? He was winsome, he was loving, he had red hot scorn for the people that when he upended the tables and said, not in my Father's house. But he had the tenderness of love. He wept when his friend died. So we need to know both the conviction and the compassion of our Lord. If we do that, we'll be able to overcome this frame of lies by saying, you know what? There is a truth. It is an objective truth. It is an objective moral truth. It comes from an objective moral law, and it comes from an objective moral lawgiver. When we come back after the break, we'll continue with the remainder of our formula. So right now, we are merging the lane of truth. We are overcoming the frame of lies, and we'll come back and talk about a little more as we finish up today's broadcast. More after the break. Greetings and welcome back to the Todd Huff Radio Show, the home of conservative, not bitter. This is Krish Dhanam, your guest host, filling in for Todd. We are talking today about how do we move and engage in this tumultuous time we are in. We talked about merging the lane of truth and overcoming the frame of lies. And next we're going to talk about vocalizing the name of reality, vocalizing the name of God. Whatever you want to vocalize, there is a vocalizing component that has to take place. And by this I mean that if you're articulate and if you're prepared, make sure that your answers are succinct, make sure your answers are fact-based, but make sure your answers are able to elicit feeling. There's an old adage that when will meets imagination, put your money on imagination. For so long, the left has been able to parade nonsense in a very emotional way. So a certain picture of grandma being thrown off a cliff from many years ago, I think it was the Michael Dukakis election time, where they said, if you elect the Republicans, your grandma's health care will be taken away. And they threw grandma off a cliff in a wheelchair. And it was a very interesting visual. Now, I don't know how many of them actually believed. that conservatives would wheel people up to the edge of a cliff and throw them off. But that's right now where we are. I don't think it would be far-fetched to say that some of the average people you talk to, they believe the vitriol so hook, line, and sinker. When they believe that people are being deported or no just cause or no due process, they're just thinking it's a roundup that is taking place without any proof, without any identity. Now, I've been pulled over a couple of times by police because I was going too fast or ran a stop sign or whatever. And when I comply with them, it's actually fairly benign. Now, I very visibly remember there was a time I was driving interstate, coming back from Florida to Texas for some reason because I didn't want to wait. I had a late engagement and I had another engagement in Arkansas, and then I was coming to Texas, and then I was going to overnight here and then fly to Hawaii or some ridiculous thing like that. So anyway, somewhere between Louisiana, Mississippi, and one of those places, I was speeding and I got a ticket. Well, each state is different in what they require you to do. One state will, in Oklahoma, for example, they'll say if you just go online and pay the fine and acknowledge your thing, no harm, no foul. Another one, you actually have to call back and verify, and otherwise there could be a warrant. So each state is different. I was a little petrified that when I got a ticket in one of the states that had the thing that I had to call back in a certain period of time, otherwise there'd be a warrant out and my license could be. And I rent cars all over the country, so I didn't want that issue. But then I was going to be out of country, and I was worried what the date would be. And I was so petrified that when the officer, I told him, I said, please don't give me a ticket because I don't know any. He says, just calm down, take a deep breath. It's okay. Everything has a process here. Some of the processes we don't understand, some of the processes we don't need to understand, but don't get into a panic unnecessarily where you'll cause yourself. And he was just so kind and sweet, in spite of the fact that he gave me a ticket that cost me $120. Now, to add insult to injury, I came back and sure enough, they had tried to send a communique to me and I was not in the country. And then when we called their office, they said, oh yeah, there is a warrant out for him. Or a warrant has been issued or something like that. I don't think it had been issued or it was in the process. I really don't understand. But my wife very calmly said, what can we do? This is just a series of unfortunate events. What must we do to make this right? And that's all the question we asked. They gave us about 4 steps and, we were able to comply with those steps and get that accomplished. Now, the reason I say that is vocalizing our ability, vocalizing our thoughts, vocalizing our knowledge, vocalizing our intellect takes a little bit of diplomacy. Today, I watch any number of these TikTok videos where everybody is a lawyer in the car. Everybody is a sovereign citizen in their car. At this point, what happens is the people in blue get fatigued. I finally chuckled today when I saw a police officer post something, says, hey, I've just come downtown and I've been asked to take part in providing guidance or providing security for a protest. So they filed a permit saying, could they have some police protection? And the irony was the cop was saying that the protest is for a defund police and they wanted police protection. So that's the insanity of this. And all we have to do sometimes is vocalize our way through humor maybe and get away with it. But I'm reminded of a story from many, many years ago. This took place, I think they say around 8400. Telemachus, also spelled Alamachus, was a Christian monk. And I'm going to read parts of the story that I have on my laptop here. The story is that around 8404, during the reign of Emperor Honorius, these are all difficult names, Honorius, Telemachus entered a gladiatorial arena in Rome. Most accounts take place in that Colosseum. Shocked by the violence, he leapt into the arena and tried to separate the fighters, crying out something along the lines of, and this they say is either legend or lore, but he's purported to have said, in the name of Christ, stop. The enraged crowd, including the gladiators themselves, stoned or struck him to death on the spot, or so the story goes. The aftermath is his martyrdom deeply moved the emperor. Soon afterwards, the emperor issued an edict banning gladiatorial contests in Rome. Thus, Telemachus' sacrifice is often credited with bringing the brutal gladiator tradition to an end. Maybe that's what we need to vocalize. In the name of all that is decent, stop. You see people going on with this gender nonsense or going on with this identity or this behavior or the proclivity and my body, my choice and all of these things. I just stand up in front of them and I need to say, in the name of all that is decent, stop. Think about it. Our Lord at the Last Supper said, "This is my body broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me, and as often as you can until I come again." And in that act, he fused human history, past, present, and future. Is it ironic that we as Christians don't feel blasphemed enough when the cry for killing a baby is "my body, my choice"? My body broken for you is a command, is the most sacred thing we participate in when we take Holy Communion. In the name of all that is decent and holy, stop. And we need to vocalize this over and over again, not with any kind of rambunctious alter ego kind of, I'm greater than you, or I'm better than you, or I'm holier than thou. But just in the name of civility and decency, stop. What do you think is the end game of this? If society goes down this path, where everybody can pick their gender, everybody can pick their identity, everybody can pick their costume, everybody can pick their work, what is the end game? And do you think this has not been tried before? In fact, even when I talk to conservatives, I tell them, I said, hey, you know what? Before you jump on the bandwagon of banishing communism, have you actually studied the evolution of it? Go back and read the teachings of Lenin. If you read Lenin's manifesto, it actually is much more conservative than some of the conservative rants I see today because of all the stuff we have seeded in the last 40 years. But in Lenin's manifesto, he says that, you know what, the proletariat and the bourgeois, the fight between the commoner and the elite was happening. The czars, the Romanov dynasty, was looting the common people. Lenin's own brother was, I think, executed because he was trying to get involved as a rabble-rouser of some kind. And so Lenin writes this manifesto saying some parts of the proceeds that are made by the people belong to them. So what he was saying is those that produce need a little bit, give them a little bit. Now, that sounds noble till Stalin comes along and says if a little power, power is good, absolute power is greater, and he continues to take Lenin. So he was not Lenin's chosen successor. In fact, for the 3 years Lenin was there, I don't think Lenin even wanted Stalin around, and Stalin usurped the power, and what he led was a revolution, the remnants of which lasted 75 years till the Iron Curtain fell when President Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. So there were moments in history where people have vocalized the right thing at the right time. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. All of these things are great seminal moments. Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. These were all poignant vocal events. We have nothing to fear but fear itself during the Great Depression. All of these things are remarkable things that have changed the course of history. So find whatever it is that works for you. But I think the one that I like to use more often than anything, in the name of all that is holy, stop. And please tell me, what is your end game? If there are no boundaries, as G.K. Chesterton said, before you drop a boundary, ask yourself why it was up there in the first place. If there are no boundaries, what is the end game? Where do we go? Do we as a civilization exist? This nonsense of a boundaryless thought that everything belonged to someone else and everybody's an usurper and everybody's an occupier, these are all nice slogans, but they're stupid on face value. Maybe our rally cry, our vocal cry, at least mine is, in the name of all that is holy and decent, stop. In the name of a loving God, stop. In the name of a loving Christ, stop. Sometimes maybe that's what's needed. And when I say that, sometimes in some of my public speeches and all of that, in the Q&A, people will always ask that question. They say, Mr. Dhanam, it seems like you're a believer. Seems like your point of view is you're coming from a Christian perspective. I said, before you go any further, I need to apologize. And they're quite curious. What do you mean? I said, I'm apologizing that it seems like I'm a Christian. If my diatribe so far and my monologue did not reveal 100% that I follow my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, then I'm doing something wrong. In the name of all that is holy, stop. We got one more segment after the next break. We'll come back after that and wrap this up. This is Krish Dhanam on the home of conservative, not bitter. Welcome back, dear friends, to the growing audience of the Todd Huff Show, Conservative, Not Bitter. My name is Krish Dhanam. My email is krish@patriotacademy.com. Krish, Krish, at patriotacademy, one word.com. Krish@patriotacademy.com. I serve as the Dean and Provost of the Patriot Institute there, where we're encouraging young minds. We teach them the classroom dignity and discipline. We teach them work dignity and discipline. And we teach them things that are master's level educational material that is being provided to kids in the 18 to 22 range. Think about it. When you go back and read the New England Primer and see what our founding fathers were learning in the first grade, like abomination and desolation and other polysyllabic words, you'll realize that the human mind has not been challenged to the degree it could be challenged. I'm exposing these kids to a world that is quite different, to Socratic debating methods, to asking them to participate, to teaching them about the Reformation, the characters within the Reformation, the fight with the Anglican Church, indulgences. I mean, master's level education we are providing. That's just a glimpse into what I get to do, and why I get to do it is probably just the benevolence of God that He's allowed me to live at a time such as this. But I love filling in for Todd, and as we close this segment out, let me end my formula. Our MOVE formula stands for merge the lane of truth, overcome the frame of lies, vocalize the name of Christ, and engage, engage, engage. Do not be a bystander. One of my mentors, Dr. Ramesh Richard, who teaches at Dallas Seminary, said, everything in this universe, everything in this world seems to be a microcosm of a sporting event on any issue. 75,000 people desperately in need of rest, constantly yelling at 22 people, desperately in need of exercise, constantly yelling at 22 people desperately in need of rest. Let me repeat that. 75,000 people desperately in need of exercise are constantly yelling at 22 people desperately in need of rest. There are certain people who have been fighting this fight. I've been fighting this fight for 25 years. I know Todd fights it daily on his radio program. We have many voices like the Shapiros of the world, Michael Knowles and the great Rush Limbaugh and many others. Conservative voices have been pounding the microphone saying, we need to engage, we need to engage, we need to engage. But somewhere along the line, it got too hard. The media hijacked the narrative. The philosophical argument was lost. The media argument was lost. All we had left was the kitchen table arguments we were looking for. So you and I retreated to suburbia, raised our fences, and raised our children, only to find out when we sent our children back into the world swallowed them up because the world was offering them a seductive option. What I'm saying is, in order to engage, understand all the issues. If someone is going through some kind of issue with the mind or with the heart or with the thought or with the belief, we have to stand side by side, look in the same direction. This is where love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind come and play, because it says love Him with your mind. But love your neighbor as yourself, which means as we love them, we need to engage. We need to engage. Gone are the days when missionaries like me who drew the long end of the stick or the short end of the stick ended up going to the ends of the world. We have to engage in Judea, we have to engage in Samaria, and we have to engage in the ends of the world. That's biblically given to us in an edict. But the beauty of America as we now know it as a melting pot, which probably has at least one person from every civilization or people group on earth that calls this place home, Judea and Samaria are now here. Ends of the earth are also here, which means in our desire to engage, we may just need to go to the corner store. We just maybe need to make eye contact with the cashier at the grocery store. We need to give a warm smile to the person who swipes us at the convenience store. Whatever it is, engage, engage, engage. Our goal in this journey is to understand that there is a beauty, there is a duality to our purpose. There is a composite of what we were created and how we were created. And let me articulate it through the lens of the word love. You know, the word love has been hijacked. Free love and blind love and let me choose who I love and what is love, and is love just a union of people or whatever. But C.S. Lewis in his Four Great Loves said, the storge, the relational love we try and pattern ourselves after, the phileo, the brotherly love we try to engage in, or the eros, the physical love some of us are blessed to endure with a partner for life, are all incomplete if they are not undergirded or under the umbrella of unconditional love, agape. So the only way I truly believe that I can get my voice to be heard and engaged in this world is I need to show others that I was loved when I was unworthy. That's their feeling. Their belief is that nobody loves them, nobody cares about them, and that's why they're doing the things to act out the way they do. But in order to stand side by side and look in the same direction, we have to remind people that we were unworthy and we were loved. To this end, I want to give you a common sense proposition. See, the easiest thing in the world is to love, and that we can do all day long. We have made love an event, whether it's Valentine's Day, whether it's an anniversary, whether it's a birthday, whether it's Mother's Day, whether it's Christmas. We have made love an event. We make a reservation, we buy a gift, we get a card, we buy some flowers, and we say that we have loved someone. We put gifts under a tree, we say we loved someone. We send charity halfway across the world, we say we loved someone. We donate to a church's mission trip, we say we loved someone. But the key they don't realize is they realize that your love is coming from excess. In order for your love to hurt, they need to see that you were loved when you were unloved. You were first loved when you were unworthy. I tell people it's easy for me to demonstrate my love. It's harder for me to demonstrate that I am loved. And to that end, I try to say that let the Christ in us find the Christ in them. We know he died for them too. That's why John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that whosoever believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life." The world. And to that end, I think we need to love the world. Not in some unconditional way that we accept it with all warts and all that, but love as Christ did. Love them because he loved them too and he died for them. Anyhow, this is Krish Dhanam, having filled in for Todd Huff on the home of conservative, not bitter. Until next time, good luck, God bless.